Hey guys, so before we get started for today, it is actually March 30th, the day that I'm recording this, and I'm really impressed that I know that simply because I have no idea what day of the week it is most days now. But I know that because your midterms are due today, and I got a couple in yesterday and a couple this morning that I graded while I was having my coffee, and I just wanted to tell you guys that they are incredible. Like, especially all things considered with everything that's been going on, you guys have just done an incredible job with everything. So I'm really excited. I'm disappointed that I didn't get to see them kind of in person and see you talk about them and show them to the class. But from what I've seen already, they are incredible. I'm so excited to get through all of them. So wonderful job. I'm really just so blessed to have you guys still putting forth that kind of incredible effort in light of everything that's been going on. So I just wanted to say that before we get going for today. So go ahead and get handout 25 ready, and I will jump back in with that on the screen and we can get going for today. Let's go ahead and just jump right into the piece that's on your handout. I'm going to play the first little bit that you have in front of you. Just listen for right now. We're going to zero in on a couple of harmonies in a minute. Just give her a listen.
Oh, ein treues Herz in Liebe vergeht, da welken die Lilien auf jedem Beet. Da muss in die Wolken der Vollmond gehen, damit seine Tränen die Menschen nicht sehen. Da halten die Englein die Augen sich zu und schluchzen und singen die Seelen zur Ruhe.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to come up with the root and quality of a couple of harmonies for me. So let's zero in on this harmony right here, this one here, and this one here. So I just want root, quality, and tell me what inversion that harmony is in. They're all the same harmony, so you only have to do this once. Root, quality, and what inversion it's in, and then we'll jump back and talk. All right, so I just labeled the top one, but what we have is an A flat major triad in first inversion. So let's just scoot up to the very top and establish our key. I think from just your listen, you could tell pretty clearly that we're in a minor key. Judging by our key signature, we are indeed in G minor. So just to sort of get us through the first system, doesn't do a whole lot. We start on tonic. This is kind of interesting. We move to the dominant, but we do have this tonic pedal. So it's got a little more crunch than a regular old dominant. And then we move back to tonic here. And we stay there through the first bar of the second system. Now, let's jump ahead. So skip the highlighted bar with the A flat major triad and look at the bar right afterwards. We have a nice clear, this time no tonic pedal, just a nice clear root position dominant that goes to tonic to end the phrase. So what to do with this highlighted measure? First off, I want to talk about where it fits in the TPDT paradigm. So we've got ourselves a nice tonic here. We've got a dominant here, got a tonic here. What's left? We obviously have ourselves a predominant harmony in that measure. Now, because we are dealing with accidentals, we are outside of the key, it is a chromatic predominant. But let's talk about now how we might label this. Now, some of you might already recognize what's going on. A, because you looked at the title of the handout, or B, because you remember, I think in theory one, you do kind of like a drive-by on this harmony. So your memory banks might already be kind of spinning as we talk about this. But we have a major triad that is built on a lowered scale degree 2. So if you remember when we were working with mode mixture last week, we talked about how, okay, if you alter the third of the triad, you just change the quality, you just change the quality of the Roman numeral. But if you alter the root, you have to reflect that alteration in your Roman numeral as well with an accidental before your Roman numeral. So in terms of labeling this, you're going to need a flat before you even get to your Roman numeral. Now we're dealing with an A flat as the root. We're in G minor, so that is an altered scale degree 2. So your Roman numeral is going to be some flavor of a 2. Since it's a major quality triad, we get to give it a major Roman numeral, and it is in first inversion. So we have a flat major 2 in first inversion. And if you scroll down, or I guess look down at the other highlighted measures, they're all in first inversion. They're all exactly the same. So I'm just gonna go ahead and slap the same Roman numeral on all of them. Now, if you look at the third one, it too comes from tonic, goes to the dominant, and then goes to tonic. So we have a nice clear representation again of tonic, predominant, dominant, tonic. Now I would like to look at that second one. So the middle one is treated just slightly differently in terms of how it resolves, but it's not different in terms of its harmonic function. So let's take a look at where it came from, which is a tonic triad. Let's skip the next harmony for a second and go 2 bars deep, and you've got a nice dominant that ends the phrase, and then we start the next phrase on tonic again. So once again, we do have a predominant function, but we just have someone who's kind of intercepting before we get to the dominant. So can you take a second for me, please, and work out the root and quality of this harmony here? And once you've worked out the root and quality, then I would like to know how you might label that. We're still in G minor, so work out the root and quality of that harmony. I'll play it for you if you want ears on it. And then once you've done that, pontificate on how you might label that. So here's the harmony itself. Sorry. So that's what it sounds like, if that gives you any kind of idea. And this is kind of where it's coming from. So we're here. This is really hard to read kind of sideways, but we'll do what we can. So here you are, tonic. There's that lovely flat major 2, and then you go here. There's your dominant, and back to tonic. So root and quality of that harmony, please, and then decide on a label for it, and we'll talk about it when you come back. Okay, so let's talk about what you've got. If I'm looking and listening at this circled harmony, if you rearrange it, stack it around, you're going to come to the conclusion that C sharp is in fact the root, and its quality is fully diminished with a 7th. So you've got C sharp, E, G, and B flat. Gives you a nice fully diminished 7th chord. Several weeks ago when we talked about this particular harmony, I told you that if it's fully diminished, it's a 7 of somebody. C sharp is the root, which tells you that it wants to go up by half step for its resolution, which would mean a resolution to D. We are in G minor, so D is our 5 chord. And it just so happens that we do indeed resolve to a D major triad. So your label then for this harmony would be a 7, fully diminished 7 of 5, and it then resolves to 5. So we're still within that nice TPDT framework. Our dominant just starts a bar early, goes through here, and we come back to tonic there. So what have we learned thus far? We have this recurring harmony. It's built off of a lowered scale degree 2. It seems to be functioning every time as a predominant harmony. And every time we've seen it thus far, it has been in first inversion, which means if you're looking at this harmony, what scale degree is in the bass? Every single time we're in G minor, scale degree 4 is always in the bass. So if you think about kind of the ways we can have predominance, we can have just a regular, I'm going to put us in C minor. So you can have just a regular 1, 4, 5 to 1. If you want to get a little spicier, you can have a 1 to a 2, 6 to a 5 to a 1. And if we're talking about kind of motion, a 2, 6 has a little bit more push towards a 5 because now we have scale degree 6, and we also have that tritone that really wants to kind of go somewhere. It wants to close off or open up. So we've got these 2 manifestations of our predominant that are driving us towards the dominant. But now we've kind of opened up an extra portal. So now we have a new flavor we can put on top of scale degree 4. If you think about it, our 4 chord, just a minor triad. Our 2, 6, diminished triad. So we're rounding out our options now here, right? 1, and then flat 2, 6. Now we've got a major option to go on scale degree 4. So this harmony, which I'm now going to put a label to, and or you can just scroll up on your handout and see the title of the handout, the Neapolitan. So this Neapolitan option now gives us this major triad in a minor context. Yes, Neapolitans happen in major keys. They were kind of born and bred in the minor mode, and that's where we do tend to see them. And they're much more evocative in a minor key, right? No one gets too excited about hearing a major triad in a major key. There's lots of them already. But when you're in a minor key, hearing that major triad, especially based off of scale degree 4, where our options are generally either minor or diminished, or half diminished if it's a 2, 6, 5, right? So hearing that major sonority coming off of scale degree 4 is really kind of evocative and opens up the sound in a really, really lovely way. So now I want to talk about form a little bit as it relates to this piece. Sorry, I hope I didn't make you motion sick there. I want to talk about form a little bit and talk about some other interesting harmonies that are unrelated to the Neapolitan. So we get this little 2-bar intro, and our A section of sorts starts here. We get our, so we have a very nice kind of square 4 plus 4. And we get a nice pack here in G minor. And we start a middle section right after that, which I'm going to call B. if we were in class together, I would ask you about A prime versus B and how you might kind of label that. I'm not suggesting in any way that this is a formal label for this page. The piece is much longer. But just for today, let's go with it there. And then we return to a material here. And again, we end with a nice pack. We get a 4+4, and we end with a nice pack in G minor. I am interested in this middle section because it does some interesting stuff harmonically. Something, it's just different, right? When we think about binary form as we studied it right before we left, a lot of times that middle section was just different than the A sections, and tended to, if rules were going to get broken, they're probably going to happen in the B section. So let's take a look. What I would like from you is, I just want a harmonic analysis of this entire B section. So what I would like are, we already did some of it, so I would like Roman numerals for the rest of the B section. So everything within the brackets. We stay in G minor, but think about who we're tonicizing and kind of what that might imply and how that changes the sound. But I'm gonna put this on pause. So pause me, come up with some Roman numerals for those missing harmonies, and jump on back and we'll compare notes. All right, so let's see what you got. Let's talk through this entire second system, really. So I'm going to start at where I have that big red T, the second system. So this is where we frame our nice tonic, and then we get our predominant in the form of the Neapolitan, dominant, and then tonic. The vocal line actually starts the B section the same way. It's still on scale degree 5. Only just one tiny little morph underneath renders what was a G minor triad now into a G dominant that then moves to 4. So if you think about the bass line that we've had this entire time, it's been a lot of 1 and 4 and 5, right? We start off the B section doing the same thing. So our bass line is still 1, but we've changed the quality, and then we go 4, and it's actually just a 4 chord this time. It's not chromatic, it's just our 4. And this is where we do get significantly different. Got another dominant, right? But this time, it's the dominant of the relative major. And that's why I told you I wanted to make a point that, yes, we stay in G minor. We talked about that slippery slope between relative major and minor. We're still in G minor. We just tonicize the relative major just for those 2 bars. And then we're right back to our kind of business as usual, our 1, our Neapolitan, and this time, there's our 7, 7 to 5. And one thing I want to point out in terms of phrase structure, this is super, super regular. 4+4 phrases, very, very kind of square, except for this passage that we were just talking about. We actually get an extra bar of dominant. So we get a 4+5 phrase. We just sit on that dominant 1 bar too long before we reinitiate the A section. So very subtle shifts. We make very subtle changes to the tonic triad to turn into that 5, 7, 4. Very subtle change in the upper harmony there. Same bass line. We're just making these little tweaks to kind of take us down a new harmonic pathway for that B section. Okay, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with this piece in particular, give it a listen. It's really, really gorgeous. Neapolitan notwithstanding, it's a really cool piece. Okay, let's take a look at the second page of your handout. This is all of the nitty-gritty stuff that is important, but you know I don't like to start with that. So let's talk about the Neapolitan in technical terms. We already know some of this. It's a major triad. It's built off of a flat scale degree 2 or lowered scale degree 2. and it is always minus a tiny number of exceptions going to be in first inversion. Now, why first inversion? That might seem arbitrary, but think about if you put this in root position. So if you put your Neapolitan in root position, you're obviously going to have lowered scale degree 2 in the base. A Neapolitan is a predominant. So where does it want to go? It wants to go to the dominant. So I'm going to keep us in G minor, and I'm just going to give you a baseline of tonic, root position, Neapolitan, dominant, tonic. So I want you to tell me what the interval is between the Neapolitan in root position and the dominant. Your answer was a tritone. You are correct. And that is not a bass motion that we're super fond of, right? So our Neapolitan is in first inversion for a voice leading purpose, because moving 4 to 5 is much more pleasant than moving flat 2 to 5. Okay. Like I said, these can occur in major keys. If they do happen in a major key, you actually have to make another alteration. You also have to lower scale degree 6. Now, let's talk about doubling when you spell these, because I'm going to make you spell them and resolve them. When you double the Neapolitan, there is a rule with the doubling, and the rule is that you double the base. Rather than you just remember the rule, I want you to also think about why that is. Flat 2, where does it want to go? Anytime you alter a pitch, it wants to keep going in the direction of its alteration. So flat 2 really wants to go to 1. Scale degree 6 in a minor key, or flat 6 in a major key, also really wants to go somewhere. It really wants to go down to 5. So because both of those tendency tones are going a very specific place, you can't double them, right? That's just going to leave you with parallel octaves. So your only other option is double the other guy, which is scale degree 4. And scale degree 4 can go different places, right? So double the bass to avoid parallel octaves. Okay, function and resolution. We already talked about a lot of this. Chromatic predominant. It's going to go to some flavor of a dominant. We saw in the Schubert 2 times it went just straight to 5. And then the third time, that time in the middle in the B section, it took a slight detour and went to a 7-7 to 5 first. And we'll talk about that in depth on Wednesday's class. Okay. Let's talk about resolution. So I just got done saying that flat 2 really wants to go to 1. The Neapolitan also goes to a dominant though. So I want you to spell a dominant in your head, 5 or 5-7 on numbers. There is not a 1 to be seen, right? So our flat 2 needs to make a pit stop. It's going to go to the leading tone first, and then the leading tone will then move to tonic. So on paper, it looks really bad. You're moving by diminished third. It doesn't look pretty. It looks like it should be wrong, but I promise it is okay. It actually does this kind of neat thing where what you end up doing is like enclosing tonic from both ends. So you get flat 2, and then you go to 7, and they both kind of squish in on tonic from above and below. And it's kind of cool, this neat like framing that happens. But it looks janky, but I promise it's right. Okay, let's take a look at these, which I have labeled as simplest resolutions of the Neapolitan, which means we are going from the Neapolitan to either a 5, a 5-7, or a cadential 6-4. These are the easiest ways to spell and resolve a Neapolitan. So if you look at this first one, we're just going to a 5. I already marked the resolution, so scale degree 2, flat 2, and scale degree 6 both have their strong tendencies. Now you've got 4 going to 5 in the base, which is dictated by the Roman numeral, and the base is doubled. But I'm going to tell you this now. I made this big deal about not doubling anyone but the base to avoid parallel octaves. So now your bass is doubled. Don't move the other one to 5 because you're going to get parallel octaves. So you've got to move that doubled bass pitch down. So as you see here, that one moves down as well. Everyone moves opposite to the bass, and you've got your 5 chord. Don't forget to raise your leading tone in your 5 chord, since we're going to stay in minor keys for right now. And then resolution to tonic as always. A 5/7. So if you look at that second little bit, resolving to 5/7 is actually a smidge easier in that you've already got scale degree 4 in that doubled voice. Just keep it there. But also know that your 5/7, when you do that, it's going to be incomplete. Don't let that bug you out. It's fine. That's the way it's supposed to go. Because scale degree 6 has to go to 5 here. So you can't move it anywhere else. So you're going to have 2 roots, a 7th and a 3rd. It's totally fine. Now let's talk about the cadential 6/4, because here you actually get a chance to move flat 2 to scale degree 1. So you've got flat 2 that moves to 1, and then it moves to the leading tone, and then it moves back up to 1. So this is the one instance when you have a cadential dominant that your flat 2 actually gets to move to 1 where it wants to go. Everything else is business as usual. And then you resolve to either, so you could move to a 5/7 here, or just a root position 5 with no 7th, and then resolution to 1. So if you look at this bottom staff, I would like to do a couple of these. Let's do one together, and then I'm gonna cut you loose to do the other 3 on your own. So we are in minor keys for all of these. So every single one of these will be in a minor key for today. So let's go ahead and work through this Neapolitan resolution to a 5 in E minor. So the first thing you're going to do is figure out who the heck is the root of the Neapolitan in E minor. So you're going to find your scale degree 2, just regular diatonic 2, which will be F sharp. Then you're going to lower it. Now, the Roman numeral says flat 2. We talked about this with mixture. That is an arbitrary label that just means lower it by a half step. In this case, it is not going to be a flatted pitch. You're undoing a sharp, so it's going to be a natural. I'm going to go ahead and write the letter names underneath. I know a lot of you like to do that as you're working things out. So you're going to have an F natural as your root, and you're just going to build yourself a major triad. So F major triad is going to be your Neapolitan. It's in first inversion, so you're going to need the A to be your bass pitch. So let's go ahead and put it there. Now, who do you need to double in a Neapolitan? You need to double the bass. So I'm just going to double it in the tenor. Voicing is pretty much your call. I will say that it is most common for flat 2 to be in the uppermost voice because that's the cool pitch, right? That's the colorful pitch. If you look at the Schubert, the voice always had the A flat. So that's the interesting stuff. The magic happens there, so why hide it? But you're free to do what you like. In this instance, I'm actually going to put it in the alto. So don't forget, I know I say this a lot, you guys are great at marking the accidentals when you write things down here, and you are not as great at carrying them up onto the staff. So please don't forget to bring your accidentals up onto the staff. Okay, now let's resolve. You can take this piecemeal, which is what I'm going to do, and get out of the way all of my tendency tones and the bass that is dictated by the Roman numeral. So the bass, the Roman numeral tells me we're going to 5. So there I go. Flat 2 has to resolve to the leading tone. So we're in E minor, my leading tone then, D sharp, which means that my F natural is going to go there. Don't forget to raise your leading tone. And yes, like I said, it looks janky, but I promise it's correct. All right, now find me scale degree 6. Scale degree 6 has to move down to 5. In this case, it's in my soprano. We're going to move it down there. So to review then, we had 6 that had to go to 5. We had flat 2 that had to go to 7. And then again, bass is just simply dictated by the Roman numerals. So we got 1 person left. Don't mess it up. Don't bring the tenor to a B because you're going to have parallel octaves against your bass. Your only other option then is to move your tenor down. And this gives you a complete triad too. I know a lot of you prefer complete triads. In our tonic to dominant to tonic resolutions, a lot of you prefer to frustrate your leading tones so that you have complete triads. This is the same deal. You want a nice, full, fat 5 chord. So there you go. 6 went down to 5, flat 2 went down to 7, and we avoided parallel octaves by moving the doubled bass pitch down to make the 5th of our 5 chord. So that gives you a nice model. So I'd like you to pause me and work out these other 3. Again, only minor keys. Each of them goes somewhere different. So we just did a Neapolitan to a regular 5. You've got a Neapolitan to a 5/6, and then you've got 2 cadential dominants in there. So work those out, and we'll come back and check, compare notes, and then you guys will be on your way. All right, let's see what you got. So kind of points of performance. And again, your voicing might be different than mine. So all I need you to do is track each of your voices to make sure that those pitches are tracking the same way as mine. The beauty in a way of these is there are not too many ways that you can resolve them. So if you've got a Neapolitan going to a cadential 6/4, there's only really one way the voicing can work. So just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page, G minor here, I need a flat 2, so I need an A flat somewhere. And I need your bass, which will be scale degree 4, which is a C. I need that to be doubled. Outside of that, the big thing here is to remember to raise your leading tone where it comes in. So here your flat 2 gets to go to 1 first and then your leading tone. Because you've got a root position, just regular old 5, so we're going cadential 6/4 to just a regular 5, wherever your other scale degree 5 is, you can just hang out there. You don't have to do anything on the second half of that dominant block. All right, let's take a look at the B minor example. So flat 2 will give you C natural. It's going to be in there somewhere. And E, scale degree 4, should be doubled. This one you're moving to a 5/7, which means that that doubled scale degree 4, wherever it might be, gets to just stay for the 5/7. 6 still has to go to 5. And flat 2 still has to go to 7. Which means that you are going to have an incomplete 5/7. So every time you're going to have 2 roots, a 3rd, and a 7th, and that's fine. It's totally cool. All right, last one. We're in F minor. There's your Neapolitan spelling. So it's going to be a G flat major triad in first inversion. You're going to move to your cadential 6/4. So again, flat 2 gets to take a pit stop on scale degree 1 on its way to the leading tone. And then everyone's just going to kind of nicely step their way down to the cadential dominant and then to your 5/7. So all 3 of your upper voices should be moving on both of those beats. Okay, so give this a check with what you've got and make sure all the vital things are happening. Flat 2 to leading tone, 6 going down, make sure that your bass is doubled. Let's jump into a real quick review for a second, and then you guys will be on your way. So homework 17 is going to connect with this lecture. It's up on Blackboard for your perusal and enjoyment. This is just a wrap up. It's basically everything that we just did. Oh, that's unfortunate. My Opus fonts did not did not import to Keynote. Good to know for the future. That looks ridiculous. So today we learned how to resolve Neapolitans, the dominant or cadential dominant. Next class, we're going to learn the other two common resolutions, one of which we saw in the Schubert, which was to go to the 7/7 of 5 first before going to the 5. So that'll be on tap for Wednesday's class. This is all of just kind of your vital info condensed into one spot, which is a little more streamlined, I think, than your handout. Homework 17, soft due date of Wednesday, April 15th. Up on Blackboard, everything you need is there. So thank you guys again for your continued, I'm assuming, attention. I honestly, I don't know. What do I know? But thank you guys. Just thinking about your roadmaps again. Thank you for your work. You're all incredible. I'm constantly just impressed by your resilience in light of everything that's going on. Hey, if you got questions, hop into my office hours and I'll work things out with you. Otherwise, I will see you guys in a couple of days.